The night before the engagement, I received a video. It showed my fiancé. His upper body was barely covered by the duvet, his muscular chest adorned with lipstick marks. The video shook, and a woman's face appeared, Vivian. She smiled playfully, and the video ended. In that moment, I was strikingly calm. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. When pushed open the front door again, it was already broad daylight. Dinner I had prepared was on the table, with 2 clean sets of dinnerware beside the dishes. Haven't eaten? Marcus tossed his suit jacket onto the armrest of the sofa, loosened his shirt buttons, and sat across from me. At the dining table, Marcus was constantly distracted, his phone screen frequently lighting up with new messages. He would take a couple of bites of food, then put down his fork to focus on replying to messages. I don't know what he saw, but a smile touched his lips. Luna, a few of my colleagues will also be joining us for dinner tonight. It was less a question and more a notification. Marcus was always like this. In front of me, he was always so confident, as if he was certain I would tolerate all his actions because I loved him. Is coming too? Marcus's gaze sharpened, piercing me. What do you want now? Marcus's brows furrowed deeply, his eyes revealing an undisguised indifference and wariness toward me. I used to be afraid when he looked at me like that, always accepting all his demands, even constantly compromising myself, pushing my boundaries back again and again. I recalled the past, trying to find evidence of our love, but I despairingly realized that Marcus was never even 1 or 2 tenths as gentle with me as he was with Vivian. Vivian was like an unbridgeable chasm between us, a forbidden zone, Marcus's eternal Eden that he would wholeheartedly protect, forbidding me any trespass. I sighed, trying to reason with him. Marcus, the engagement is today. Whe. Were you last night? He hesitated. Last night, Vivian suddenly called, saying she had heart palpitations and asked me to check on her. You know she's always been frail, so I took her to the hospital. To the hospital? Yes, she went to the emergency room. The doctor said Vivian was overwhelmed with anxiety, which caused her heart palpitations. I nodded, handing him my phone. The video was playing on a loop on the screen. Is this the hospital? Marcus's face gradually turned ashen. He remained silent. Let's just end it. I stood up from the sofa, sighing. Let's not get engaged. Vivian finally agreed to accept you, so this is where we stop. I hadn't expected to say those words so calmly. In countless nights past, I had anxiously imagined 100 ways Marcus might say, I'm sorry, goodbye, but I never thought the phrase this is where we stop, marking the end of our relationship, would come from my own mouth. Saying those words didn't seem so hard after all. Just like Marcus, agreeing to be with someone other than Vivian didn't seem so hard. Marcus sat in the chair, looking as surprised as I was. His chest rose and fell involuntarily, his breathing rapid. He stared at me, gritting his teeth, like a lion whose territory had been invaded, insulted, and was now baring its fangs. I was willing to get engaged to you, what else do you want? What did I want? My mind wandered. Maybe I was finally tired of being treated as a backup, an expendable accessory, a supporting character who could be kicked aside the moment Vivian returned. I wanted to be chosen decisively. The only time Marcus ever chose me decisively was on that rainy night when Vivian abandoned him and left the country alone. He sat below Vivian's building, letting the heavy rain pour down, utterly distraught. I found him, holding an umbrella. It was one of the rare torrential downpours in the city, and the accumulating water slowly rose past my knees. I held the umbrella over his head, but it didn't block the whipping rain blown in by the wind. I tossed the umbrella aside, cupped his face with both hands, and wiped away the wet traces. He stared at me blankly, then leaned down and fiercely kissed my lips. It was salty and bitter. I didn't know if it was rain or his tears. Later, we got together. Until now, I hadn't slept all night, and my head ached. What do I want? I scoffed. I just find this all so meaningless. We're not good for each other. Let's stop hurting each other. Marcus hadn't expected me to refuse him again and again. He slammed his fork heavily onto the table and stormed off. You won't regret this. I sat blankly for a while longer, watching the video Vivian had sent me again. That morning, she sent me a second video. I had already blocked her previous number, but that didn't stop her from provocatively showing off. In the video, Marcus, wearing an apron, stood in the kitchen with downcast eyes. The warm kitchen light formed a small halo in his dark hair. The end of the video again showed Vivian. From the background, she was sitting at the dining table, waiting for Marcus to cook for her. I cleanly added Marcus's parents and my parents to a group chat and sent both videos. Mom, Dad, Aunt, Uncle, the engagement is off, for reasons you'll see in the videos. The group chat was silent. A moment later, my dad replied with an understood. See? Calling off an engagement isn't so hard after all. Both families met, and it was a tense confrontation. The two families were old acquaintances, and Marcus's and my engagement had originally been a mutually desired outcome for both sets of parents. My father was furious, firmly stating he wanted to call off the engagement. Marcus's parents were both ashamed and angry, ultimately sighing and offering their apologies. My son, he's truly messed up, Clara said, taking my mother's hand, sighing heavily. My really let Luna down. Richard sat in a chair, his lips trembling with anger. Marcus knelt before tea. While my parents stood to the side, observing coldly. My mother slowly pulled her hand away from Clara's. For things like this, as elders, we shouldn't force things. Ultimately, it was meant to be, but not destined to last. It's better for both children to separate early. Marcus, my Luna isn't good enough for you anymore. I moved into the apartment I owned on the east side of the city. The apartment faced south, filled with abundant sunlight. I had never imagined a life without Marcus before. Back then, no matter how I thought about it, I could only envision endless darkness, loneliness, and sorrow. But now, bathed in the sun, I felt warm all over, cozy and relaxed. Without, I suddenly had so much time to myself. So I headed out with my easel to paint outdoors in nearby villages. The places weren't far, accessible by subway. The subway was still packed with people. I stood in a corner with my easel strapped on and headphones in, swaying with the rhythm of the train starting and stopping. What was I thinking back then? To give up this comfort and endure Marcus's hardships? I asked myself again and again, but I struggled to find a suitable answer. The subway arrived at a station near University Heights, and many students surged on. A man not far in front of me stumbled backward toward me, seeming about to fall. I instinctively reached out to steady him, and the easel slung across me fell to the ground with a thump. The young man profusely apologized. He knelt down with difficulty, picked up my easel, handed it to me, and gave me a slight smile. He had beautiful, gentle eyes, sparkling behind his wire-rimmed glasses. His hair fell softly, unlike Marcus's habitually slicked-back style, giving him a more academic appearance. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to. He smiled at me, and even though most of his face was hidden behind a mask, I could still see a hint of inherent earnestness in his crescent-shaped eyes. I shook my head at him, indicating it was fine. I see you're carrying an easel. Are you a student at Northwood University? I thought the conversation had ended, but he seemed very curious about me. I'm already working. Me too. He smiled at me again, extending his hand. My name is Julian, and I'm a professor at Northwood University. I politely shook his hand. My name is Luna, as in the graceful Luna. So, are you going painting outdoors now? He asked again. Yes, to Willow. A moment later, he gently touched my shoulder. I know this is a bit sudden, but would you consider getting off with me 2 stops from now? I can drive you to Willow. My car is parked near my apartment complex. Seeing my confused and wary look, he quickly waved his hands. I don't mean anything by it, I just think you look unwell right now. If you take the subway, it might be another hour and a half, but by car, it's less than half that time. I'm really not a bad person, I just... The more he spoke, the more flustered he became, finally saying dejectedly, just think of me as a creep. It was the first time in days that I truly laughed out loud. Alright. It was neither a weekend nor a holiday, so there were very few tourists in the village. I rented a small cottage at the head of the village for an extended stay. The garden wall was fully lined with flower pots. Around the cottage, there was also a well, with sparse green moss growing around its opening. Julian safely delivered me to the cottage door and helped me carry in my luggage. As I was getting out of the car, he stopped me. Want to exchange numbers? I looked at him in surprise. He visibly blushed and stammered, no, I also want to visit here, if you're not busy. I realized then that Julian tended to stutter when he got nervous. I took out my phone, stifling a laugh. Can you add me? Julian was unexpectedly talkative, almost constantly sharing details of his life with me. In the morning, he mentioned buying savory buns for breakfast, the vegetarian buns from Lee's Bakery, with their crispy crust, bursting with juicy filling, and even included a picture. I replied, looks delicious. The screen immediately showed Julian is typing. I'll bring them over to you. No matter how much I protested, half an hour later, a knock came at the cottage door. Julian proudly handed me the savory buns he was holding. I rushed over, they're still warm. Eat them while they're hot. His eyes were sparkling. As he handed me the buns, he used his other hand to adjust his shirt and tie. Although his attire was still neat, there was a hint of being slightly disheveled from travel. I took the savory buns and suddenly felt like the food tasted bland. After a moment's hesitation, I spoke, "Thank you for the savory buns, but I just broke off my engagement. I'm not ready to start a new relationship right now." Whether it was arrogance or wishful thinking, I vaguely saw my own reflection in Julian. I, too, had once eagerly brought Marcus delicious food I had waited in line for ages to buy, only to see Vivian's social media, where she posted photos with the caption, "Delicious pastries from my always attentive Marcus." I didn't want to irresponsibly accept his advances, only to end up putting his heart through the ringer of self-doubt. Julian looked at me gently. "Luna, do you believe in love at first sight?" A gentle breeze brushed my cheek, messing up my hair. Julian carefully reached out and smoothed my hair. "I'll wait for you, for the day you're ready to start a new relationship." Julian truly kept his word. Whenever he didn't have classes at the university, he would come to my cottage every day. When I went painting, he would eagerly carry my art supplies box and easel for me, or he'd bring his laptop and work beside me. In the evenings, back at the cottage, he would put on an apron and cook. At first, I politely declined, feeling embarrassed. How could I let a guest cook? But after tasting Julian's sweet and sour ribs, I immediately felt like I was in heaven. "It's so good," I mumbled to Julian, chewing on a rib. He smiled happily, and after I swallowed the rib, he wiped a speck of sauce from the corner of my mouth. Suddenly, there was a heavy banging on the cottage door. Startled, I looked up. It was Marcus. He was wearing a white shirt and vest, his suit jacket off and draped over his arm, looking a bit disheveled. One hand was still on the door, clenched into a tight fist. Marcus's gaze wasn't on me, but aimed directly at Julian behind me. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice dry. "Who is he?" Julian was about to speak, but I held him back. "Mr. Marcus, what brings you here?" I asked. Marcus was proud and high-spirited, he wouldn't fail to understand my subtle request for him to leave. "You're protecting him?" Marcus glared at me fiercely, his eyes red. "Is it because of him that you're calling off our engagement? Where did this random man come from? Are you so easily seduced?" He fired off a barrage of questions, growing increasingly agitated, increasingly fast, finally lunging to grab me. I slapped him hard across the face, looking at him with disappointment. "Don't insult my friend. You know perfectly well why we called off the engagement." Even when our relationship was completely broken, Marcus still couldn't learn to find fault in himself. He couldn't understand why I had suddenly changed, suddenly couldn't accept him, no longer loved or cared for him. He looked around, and naturally, he blamed others. "I've explained it to you, nothing happened between Vivian and me." Marcus roared at me furiously. Silence fell over the cottage. Marcus, believing he had found the core of the problem, extended his hand toward me again. "Vivian is innocent and kind, she feels very guilty about what happened between us. Luna, don't push your luck. Come back to me." I dodged him. "One day, you said you wanted crab roe buns. The night before, I waited outside the shop to buy them for you the next morning. I GHT them at 5 a.m. and brought them over, but you had changed your passcode. You wouldn't answer my calls, so I had no choice but to sit by the door, waiting for you to wake up. Fearing the buns would get cold, I wrapped them in my clothes and held them close to keep them warm. It wasn't until 9 that you opened the door, only to say the buns were cold and tasted bad, then threw them away. One night, I had severe gastroenteritis. I called you from home, wanting you to come with me to the hospital, but you said you were at a gathering with colleagues and couldn't make it. Later, I called 911 myself and had my best friend come stay with me. I was in the hospital for 2 days, and you never once came to visit me. The things I've mentioned are just a couple of examples. Mr. Marcus, you probably don't remember any of it, do you? In the 2 years we were together, how much thought did you truly put into me? Do you know what my favorite food is, my favorite color, or what I'm allergic to? Luna, I was utterly exhausted. Mr. Marcus, I have never done anything to betray you. Our separation isn't just because of Vivian, it's because of your years of neglect and indifference. Let's part amicably. Please, let me go, okay? My vision blurred, and I felt moisture on my face. Marcus had left at some point. Julian gently supported me, and we sat on the stone bench. "Julian, do you look down on me?" I asked, my voice choked with tears. Everyone who pours their heart into love, who bravely fights for their own happiness, is the bravest person. I think you did wonderfully, he said, gently stroking my hair with compassion in his voice. The night slowly deepened. His phone suddenly lit up on the stone table, strikingly bright. I glanced at it. It was an unknown number. I've done as you asked. You need to keep your promise. Marcus was in a car accident on his way back. I heard he was distracted, didn't notice an oncoming car, and swerved frantically, hitting the guardrail by the roadside. My father told me Marcus hadn't sustained any serious injuries, apart from a concussion, the rest were superficial injuries. The doctor recommended keeping him for 1 or 2 days of observation. The following evening, I received a call from Marcus's mother. Luna, it's Aunt. Marcus has been staring at his hospital room door every day these past few days, asking if you've come to visit him. Luna, could Aunt ask you to come see Marcus? The elderly, timid female voice on the other end carried a hint of caution and a mother's heart full of love for her son. No matter how much I wanted to avoid Marcus, I couldn't refuse this mother who treated me like her own daughter. I had no choice but to agree. The next day, I carried fruit and a flower basket, opening the hospital room door to Marcus. The moment I walked in, Marcus's eyes lit up. Luna. He was wearing a hospital gown, much thinner, and struggled to get up to greet me. Vivian was sitting by the bed. I hadn't seen her in a while, and she was as elegant as ever, wearing a white dress. She pulled Marcus back, her eyes red. Marcus. The doctor said you shouldn't exert yourself right now. Her words were delicate, with a touch of appealing vulnerability at the end. Marcus's movements unconsciously slowed. Vivian shot me a triumphant glance. I found it amusing. I placed the get-well gifts on the bedside table, then turned and retreated to the door, ready to leave. It seems Mr. Marcus is well enough. The get-well gifts have been delivered, so I'll be going now. Luna, wait. A flurry of commotion erupted in the hospital room, but I had no intention of waiting and walked straight out. As I turned the corner, I wasn't paying attention and bumped into someone. Luna? The stranger steadied my swaying body, his voice familiar. I looked up, and it was Julian. He held a check-in slip in his hand, his face slightly pale. What's wrong? Why are you in the inpatient department? I hastily asked him. Julia. N's body stiffened slightly, then immediately resumed its weak posture. Did I take a wrong turn? Is this the inpatient department? He took my hand and placed it on his forehead. Luna, do I have a fever? The temperature beneath my hand was hot. I anxiously supported him. Julian, your fever is very high. Are you dizzy? Lean on me, I'll take you to the emergency room. He nodded, leaning into my strength against my shoulder, breathing rapidly near my ear. Luna. At that moment, the voice I least wanted, and should not have, heard came from behind me. Marcus rushed out of his hospital room. He stood at the corner, his eyes red as he glared at Julian and me. I begged you to come see me. I begged you to stay, and you turn around and are being openly affectionate with him here. Luna, what is your heart made of? I felt a little guilty. Since I had promised Clara I would visit Marcus, I shouldn't provoke him further at a time like this. However, Julian's hand tightened around my waist. He gasped softly, and whispered, Luna, I don't feel well. I gritted my teeth, supporting Julian as I prepared to leave. Marcus strode up, gripping my other free hand tightly. Luna, stay. He gritted his teeth, his voice trembling. Please. I never imagined the proud Marcus would say please to me. But's body was burning hot, and he couldn't be delayed. Vivian then chased out, calling out sadly, Marcus. For a moment, I felt a sense of relief. I immediately pulled my hand free from Marcus's grasp. Vivian will take care of you. He's sick, don't be unreasonable. Behind me, I heard the sound of Marcus's crutch being angrily thrown to the ground. Len and I were in the elevator, he spoke, his voice hoarse. Won't Marcus be angry if we do this? The elevator door chimed open. I can't worry about that right now. Besides, he has Vivian to take care of him, you're alone. Of course, I have to be responsible for you. I helped him out of the elevator. Are you still dizzy? Do you have a headache? A doctor in a white coat walked past, glanced at Julian, paused, and immediately approached him. Mr. Julian. Julian suddenly coughed, muffling the sound. I quickly asked, Doctor, you've come at the right time. Is the fever clinic this way? The doctor in the white coat looked a bit confused. Oh, yes, it's this way. But, Julian. Julian's cough grew more severe. Cough, cough, cough. Would you mind leading the way? Many thanks. That day ended with Julian being taken for a COVID test and waiting at the hospital until the results came back and he had seen a doctor. I settled Julian on a waiting bench and went to pick up the medicine with the prescription. While getting the medicine, I saw the doctor in the white coat who had tried to speak earlier standing next to Julian. Julian had his back to me, so I couldn't see his expression. When I walked back, the doctor in the white coat was gone. I asked, "Did that doctor want something?" He gave 2 weak coughs. He told me to monitor my temperature closely and get regular COVID tests. I was skeptical. It was nearly 10 at night when I dropped Julian off at his home. By the time I returned to my own place and settled in, it was almost midnight. I pulled out my phone to see a row of unread messages. Judging by the tone, they were mostly from Marcus. "Luna, where are you? I don't feel well. Come see me. Are you with that man? I found out about him. Julian. If he wasn't around, would you come back to me?" I was utterly annoyed. The attention I had once desperately craved and never received had now become ancient history to me, something that had lost its appeal. Everything he said and did was utterly unreasonable. "Marcus, get a grip," I finally replied. "Is with you? Go to her." He quickly replied, "I've told you many times that Vivian and I aren't what you think." Okay, the night before the engagement, I had dinner with colleagues, and I was dizzy from drinking. Vivian brought me to a hotel room, but he didn't do anything. Please believe me, okay? I believe you. Let's just leave it at that, I replied. I cleanly blocked that number and lay down to rest. The next morning, I woke up to a text message from another unknown number, sent at 3 a.m. I won't let go that easily. That day, Northwood University professor embroiled in academic misconduct, plagiarism scandal topped the trending topics. Hot topics like Northwood University's youngest associate professor patted, and Northwood University associate plagiarism remained highly popular. Someone anonymously reported Julian for plagiarism. Several posts were published, featuring screenshots of parts of Julian's papers that were similar to other papers, marked with a glaring red X. Suddenly, the internet was abuzz with discussion. Northwood University was singled out and, under immense public pressure, issued a statement promising a thorough investigation. Julian was, naturally, suspended from his position. All his teaching responsibilities were reassigned, research projects were paused, commissioned articles were withdrawn, and even the academic forums he was scheduled to attend temporarily removed his name. And all of this was definitely Marcus's doing. "I'm sorry, it's my fault." I felt terribly guilty, sitting on the stone bench in the cottage, at a loss. Julian's daily life was severely disrupted. He had no choice but to seek my help, temporarily staying in a vacant room at the cottage. He, however, seemed utterly untroubled by the plagiarism accusation, wandering around the cottage with rare curiosity. Once his luggage arrived, he busied himself in the small room with a lot of clanging and banging. In the evening, he enthusiastically entered the kitchen again. Before long, he emerged with a perfectly arranged plate of air-shipped premium crabs, honey-glazed chicken drumsticks, steamed pumpkin with ribs, and a small dish of refreshing Shanghai bok choy. After we sat down, I eagerly began to crack open a crab. As soon as I opened the crab shell, bright orange crab roe overflowed. Beneath the roe, red crab paste quivered, and even before tasting it, I could imagine the lingering flavor. I looked up at him in surprise. Are these premium crabs?" Julian, smiling sweetly, watched me eat. Hearing my question, he nodded. "They were air-shipped. Do you like them? Air-shipped?" I choked on a mouthful of crab meat I hadn't yet swallowed. Cough, cough, cough. Where did you get the money?" Julian anxiously got up to pat my back, looking rather flustered. Well, it's like this, my advisor. He saw I was unfairly suspended, so he gave me some crabs he'd received as a gift, as a consolation." I finally stopped coughing, and then felt guilty again. "Oh, I see." Julian faced the accusations and suspicions from the department alone, bearing the overwhelming online criticism and mockery. Yet, he seemed unfazed and comforted me instead. "It's a clear conscience matter for me. I'm not afraid of the school's investigation. I've submitted all the necessary documents to the school. Now I'm just taking a break here at Luna's." His voice suddenly dropped. "If it weren't for this, I wouldn't have been able to stay in this cottage." I didn't quite hear him and asked what he said. Julian smiled gently at me and picked a rib for me. "Marcus is targeting me like this simply because he's jealous that I get to be by your side so often." My phone screen on the stone table suddenly lit up with yet another entirely unknown number. The first time, I didn't answer, but the number kept calling repeatedly. Neither nor I spoke, both of us knew it had to be Marcus on the other end. After a moment of silence, I said, "Even if it's just something insignificant and unvalued, it's still one's own." Losing it abruptly naturally makes one feel a bit unaccustomed, it's just possessiveness. Julian shook his head at me and picked up the phone. Luna. Marcus's voice on the phone was slurred with drunkenness, but it also conveyed wild joy. You finally answered my call, Luna. Mr. Marcus, can I help you? Julian calmly replied. The breathing on the other end grew heavier and heavier. Suddenly, a sweet female voice came from the phone. Marcus, you're drunk. Immediately followed by the sound of a breaking bottle. Julian hung up the phone, cupped my face, and said in a low voice, he doesn't know how to cherish things. If it were me, I wouldn't be mistaking a fake for a gem, or carelessly ruining a real treasure. I received a text message from Vivian, very suddenly. In the message, she was no longer her usual provocative self, simply asking to meet. I initially intended to refuse, but her second message quickly followed. Ms. Luna, I have something here you might be interested in. I'm not interested in Marcus. Her reply came back quickly. Regarding Julian? I looked up at Julian, who was cheerfully watering the flowers in the cottage and feeding the fish in the water tank. He was looking down, his eyelashes long, a slight smile on his lips, gentle and pure. I typed and deleted in the chat box, hesitating for a long time before finally sending. Time, place. On the day I was scheduled to meet Vivian, I made up an excuse about going shopping with my best friend and returned to the city. Vivian was already waiting for me in the cafe. The cafe had a grand facade and inside, layered screens created independent conversation spaces for each table. The waiter led me to the back of the cafe. When saw me, she stood up and smiled slightly. Ms. Luna, long time no see. I nodded briefly, sat down, and went straight to the point. What is it you want to tell me about Julian? My heart pounded rapidly. Faced with Vivian's poised expression, I couldn't stop myself from thinking the worst. Julian, for a moment, those three words swirled prominently in my mind. Although I appeared calm and steady on the surface, cold sweat broke out all over me. She just looked at me, her lips curving into a slight smile. I closed my eyes and desperately tried to calm myself. Your terms? I want a plane ticket. I raised an eyebrow. I thought that would be easy for you. She took out a voice recorder she carried and pushed it toward me. You'll understand once you listen to this. The voice recorder turned on, emitting a crackling sound. Then the voices became clear. I heard a woman's voice say, "What do I need to do?" It was Vivian's voice. A man's voice, familiar yet strange through the recorder, spoke. After you return, I'll arrange for you to work at Marcus's company. Find an opportunity to rekindle your old flame with him, take him to a hotel, then film a video and send it to Luna. I don't need to be too explicit about your attitude toward Marcus, the kind of video, or who to send it to, do I? The woman's voice asked. May I ask why you want to do this? The man's voice was silent for a moment, then said, do you have something you've cherished for a long time? If your treasure were accidentally stolen by someone else, but that person didn't appreciate it at all, throwing it around and damaging it, what would you do? I understand. Ms. Vivian is very clever. In short, you're responsible for keeping Marcus busy, which should be simple for you. In return, I'll give you a large sum of money, enough for you to live comfortably for the rest of your life. I'll also arrange the best education for your child and provide comprehensive protection. Ms. Vivian, instead of constantly striving for your child's future, why not make a deal with me for a substantial profit? What if it fails? If harms her, or if anything happens that compromises her safety, anything connected to Marcus, I will hold you entirely responsible. How does that sound? Why don't you do it yourself? With your resources and cunning, wouldn't it be simple to control Marcus and win the lady? For her, I cannot risk anything. The conversa. Tyan ended there. Vivian looked up, giving me a bitter smile. So now you know why I can't buy a plane ticket? Julian's background is far more terrifying than you imagine. I can't buy a plane ticket at all now. Even if I use different apps, or find ticket agents, even if I successfully purchase a ticket, within a short time, the airline will call to inform me that I don't meet the conditions for exiting the country, and the ticket purchase failed. I'm not unattached like Ms. Luna. I have a child still in infancy, and I'm willing to give everything for his future. That's why I took such a risk and accepted Mr. Julian's conditions. He offered compensation sufficient for my child and me to live comfortably, as well as assurance for my child's future education. Marcus is ignoring me now, dedicating himself entirely to you. Therefore, Julian is quite displeased with me. So, Ms. Luna, I'm desperate and have no choice but to seek your help. If he possessed such capabilities, then was Julian truly just an ordinary professor? I feigned composure and asked, even if what you say is true, since you came to me, you don't want to alert Julian. But I'm merely a painter, I can't handle your plane ticket issue. Vivian pulled a cigarette from her handbag and slowly lit it. If and Mr. Julian become an item, and you put in a good word for me with him, I'd be deeply grateful. I just hope Luna can understand a mother's heart and accept this favor from me. My head was throbbing violently. I asked her for one and lit it too. Our eyes met through the curling smoke. She looked at me, her gaze holding sympathy. Sometimes, when I look at you, I don't know whether to envy you or feel fortunate. Marcus, Julian, they both love you. And in your story, I'm always just a tool. Luna, you must not know that nothing ever happened between Marcus and me, from start to finish. In college, people on forums and in group chats always tried to set Marcus and me up, but Marcus was always distant towards me. He only deliberately acted affectionate when you were around. Marcus is handsome, from a good family, and capable. I actually wanted to win him over. Once, I confessed my feelings to him while he was drunk. He first stared at me with wide eyes, then after recognizing me, he shoved me away and told me, Vivian mimicked Marcus's tone, it's not her. Get lost. You disgust me. You're the only one who could get close to Marcus. I envied you, but then I found Marcus, towards you, she smiled at me. Fellow travelers in misfortune. Barely escaped Marcus, only to immediately fall into Julian's intricate trap. Luna, good luck to you. She elegantly stood up, paid the bill, and left. I had never smoked before. I took a puff and choked violently. On the way home, my mind was reeling. As I reached the cottage gate, Grandma from next door was sitting by her door shelling peas. She greeted me kindly, Luna, you're back. Yes, Grandma, it's rare for me to go out these days. I walked through the cottage gate and closed it tightly. Leaning against the door, my heart was pounding relentlessly. I should have noticed these subtle anomalies in my daily life much earlier. Grandma, always sitting by her door shelling peas, would cheerfully greet me every time I left the house, asking where I was going, when I'd be back, and telling me to be careful. The fisherman by the lake at the foot of the mountain would sit by the village lake at the same time, in the same spot, motionless, every day. That was my usual path when painting outdoors. The young woman next door, who, when I spent entire days working on my paintings inside the cottage, would knock on my cottage gate, bringing me homemade pastries, saying she was concerned when she hadn't seen me and came to check on me. They were all Julian's watchers. Given such capabilities, Julian was never just an ordinary college professor. If I remembered correctly, there was a prominent Song family in the city, with a low-ing lineage, immense power, and deep roots. Many branches of the Song family had moved abroad, while the main branch remained in the city, living a reclusive life. There were rumors about the Song family online, but they often disappeared quickly. For all these years, all I knew was that the main branch of the Song family resided in an old-world charm estate, steeped in tradition. A family that could remain steadfast and firmly established through dynastic changes, wartime turmoil, and national development. Their influence was truly formidable. Yet how could a scion of such a family be riding the subway, and how could he have fallen in love at first sight with me? The beginning with Julian seemed to be nothing but a web of lies. But his dependent, adoring gaze didn't seem fake. To say I didn't feel his affection would be lying to myself. Many times, late at night, when we drank together and I drifted off to sleep, I could feel Julian's burning gaze on me, and his fingers gently stroking my hair and face. Once, I even felt his breath softly caress my face. After a long, long time, accompanied by a sigh, he picked me up and carried me into the room, doing nothing else. After everything with Marcus, I thought I could never fully trust love again. Yet, when it came to Julian, I kept softening my stance again and again. Even if he was hiding things from me, faced with such pure love, I truly couldn't bring myself to harshly reject him. I tried hard to convince myself, maybe there's another reason? I pulled myself together and walked into the cottage. But wasn't there, it was empty and lifeless. I quickly pulled out my phone and saw a message he had sent me not long ago. Luna, the university called me in for an academic committee review. I'll be back soon. It was followed by another message. What do you want for dinner tonight? As I stood there, phone in hand, my thoughts a mess, the cottage door was knocked upon. An uninvited guest arrived. It was Marcus. He was carrying a bowl of seafood chowder. The plastic bag bore the Harmony logo. His face was a bit pale, but when he saw me, he struggled to pull up the corners of his mouth, forcing a cautious smile. Luna, I brought you your favorite seafood chowder. It's got all your favorite ingredients, calamari, large shrimp, and crab meat. I stared at him intently, remembering his slander against Julian, but still, I eventually made way for him. Come in. He looked incredibly flattered, almost stumbling over the steps as he entered the cottage. He placed the seafood chowder on the small stone table in the cottage and stood awkwardly to the side. He was wearing a light gray suit today, with a subtly patterned tie. His hair was neatly slicked back, his features sharp, and a prominent nose with a distinguished profile made him look handsome and poised. I used to love this look on him. In the past, I might have swooned over him, or playfully jumped on him. But now, even seeing him go out of his way to buy my favorite food, dressed in my favorite style, and standing before me with open arms, I only took a step back, politely and distantly creating space. Mr. Marcus, please sit. I poured him a cup of tea and got straight to the point. Mr. Marcus, regarding Julian, I think it's time you stopped, don't you think? The flicker of joy on his face instantly faded to dismay. He gripped the cup in his hand tightly. Luna, don't be so cold to me. He mumbled, Julian, Julian, always Julian. He turned to me, pleadingly. Luna, what I did with Vivian was wrong, but nothing really happened between us. Please don't misunderstand anymore, okay? I raised an eyebrow, my expression showing impatience. He quickly added, everything you said last time, I've seriously reflected on. Luna, I didn't know how to love before, but I'll change everything. Please give me a chance to make amends, give me a chance to stand by your side again, let me make up for all the wrongs I've done. Marcus was always like this, constantly draining me, grinding me down, trampling my self-respect. Then, just as the faint flicker of hope, like a matchstick flame, in my heart was dying, he would add fuel to the fire, giving me the illusion that with just a little more effort, I could win his heart. I remember when we first started dating, Marcus completely disregarded my feelings, frequently got drunk with friends at the bar and came home wasted, acting like he was nursing a broken heart by drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Once, twice, it became a cycle, and I grew increasingly bitter, even unconsciously considering giving up. The way he mumbled Vivian's name when drunk, and his coldness towards me when sober, were all like slaps across my face. But once, when I went to pick him up, his friends started teasing, sister-in-law, have a drink to get to know us. Most of them were mutual friends of Marcus and Vivian. Though they knew Marcus and Vivian had broken up, they still saw me as the interloper and kept their distance with open hostility. The loudest one grabbed a clean glass, quickly poured a full glass of wine, and offered it to me. Marcus hasn't been in a good mood lately, and it's thanks to sister-in-law's patience and care. Sister-in-law, this drink is from me to you, please. I never drank alcohol, but at that moment, I absolutely didn't want to make Marcus lose face, so I gritted my teeth and reached out to take it. Marcus stepped in front of me, intercepting the drink, and drained it in one gulp. She's allergic to alcohol. I'll drink it for her. He slammed the empty glass onto the table and slumped onto my shoulder, whispering, take me away. Even now, it's hard to accurately and objectively describe how I felt then. It was like dropping a bath bomb into a bathtub, with effervescent bubbles constantly rising to the surface, a soothing sensation. The bubbles gently burst, and in a warm mist, a soft, oceanic bath scent diffused. My heart, which had been subtly aching, RSED in this warm water, seemed to begin to heal. I painstakingly tried to mend the cracks in my heart with the mere crumbs of affection Marcus threw my way. Once mended, I would hand him a complete, crimson heart. Yet continued to toy with my heart until it was shattered into pieces, and I was too weary to mend it again. I sighed. It's all in the past. Let's not dwell on it anymore. His eyes suddenly reddened. He quickly reached for my hand. We have to talk about it. Why shouldn't we? How much you loved me, Luna, how much you used to love me. I absolutely shouldn't have neglected your feelings, but you have to give me a chance to make it up to you. You loved me so much, how could you just turn away and abandon me? I was truly exasperated and shook his hand away. Mr. Marcus, let's put that aside. Let's talk about Julian's matter first. His chest heaved rapidly. His eyebrows slowly furrowed, as if he might slam the table and jump up any second. But seeing my expression remained unfazed, he forcefully suppressed his rising anger. He stood up and paced around the cottage twice. When he stopped, he let out a cold laugh. His laugh was terrifying. He said through his laughter, ha ha ha, Julian, damn Julian. His fingers instinctively curled twice. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter. With his other hand, he pulled out a cigarette. He stood up and moved to the downwind side, clicking the lighter intermittently, lighting the cigarette. He took 2 puffs, took a deep breath, and exhaled a large cloud of smoke. Suddenly, in a fit of madness, he threw the lighter against the wall, his eyes bloodshot with fury. Do you think Julian is some kind of saint? Do you think he's completely upright and incorruptible? Let me tell you, he has connections everywhere. He's done all sorts of good and bad things behind your back, yet in front of you, he acts so pitiful. Luna, he's tricked you. Marcus had completely lost it. I stared at him in disbelief. Stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. Mr. Marcus, it seems we can't continue this conversation today. Please leave. Marcus tossed his cigarette butt onto the ground, adjusted his slightly disheveled suit collar, and let out a long breath. I can go. He stepped towards the door. I made way for him, but he stopped in front of me. But I didn't plan on leaving alone today. My eyes widened, but the next second, my mouth and nose were suddenly covered with a handkerchief that had a strange scent. Before I could even react, I immediately lost consciousness. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in an unfamiliar room. The walls were painted pink, a chandelier hung from the ceiling, and thin, light-colored drapes hung from the light. Wall art adorned the walls, and there were delicate decorative items in the room. There was a window, but it was tightly sealed with iron bars, only vaguely revealing the lush trees outside. Where was I? My hands and feet weren't tied. I immediately scrambled off the bed and rushed to the door. The interior was a vintage European style, but the door installed was a solid black iron door. The cold metal was smooth and heavy. I used all my strength, but couldn't move the door an inch. Is anyone there? Is anyone there? I pounded on the door, shouting loudly. Footsteps sounded outside the door. It was the sound of shoes on a hardwood floor. The door lock clicked open, and before my eyes appeared Marcus's handsome yet somber face. Click, the door closed again. You're finally awake, he said with a pleasant smile. I stumbled back a step. Marcus. Luna, you're finally back with me. He seemed not to hear me, gently lifting my chin. The little bird has returned to its cage. His eyes were bloodshot, his facial muscles twitching involuntarily, making him look eerie and sinister. Marcus. Calm down. I desperately tried to push his hand away. But the difference in strength between Marcus and me was too great. I used all my strength, but couldn't move him an inch. Fighting him directly was like hitting a rock with an egg. I could only try to reason with him. Marcus, you and Vivian are finally together now, why drag me into your affairs? If you have any sanity left, you should let me go. Do you know when this cage was built? Marcus seemed to ignore me. He just let go of me and contentedly walked around the room, touching things. He was wearing V-neck loungewear and silver-rimmed glasses, his lips curved slightly, exuding an air of dashing elegance. On our first anniversary, that night, you came to pick me up, holding an umbrella, standing under a street light. It was raining heavily then. I stood by the window, watching how long you would wait for me. You waited half the night, and I watched you half the night. Luna, I thought then, only you. I must hold you tightly, never letting you leave me again. What's easily obtained is never cherished enough, right? Marcus sat on the bed. I always felt you didn't care about me enough, not enough, so I did all those foolish things, trying to prove you cared about me. But in the end, I pushed you away. He suddenly grew agitated. I pushed you away. I could always win you back. But I didn't expect an unexpected challenger to appear. Marcus gritted his teeth, his emotions suddenly spiraling out of control. Julian. I had already felt my heart turn to ash, huddled in a corner, secretly on guard, but now I was suddenly startled. Julian. He doesn't know I've been kidnapped here. When he gets home and sees the cottage in disarray, how worried he'll be. Marcus gave a sinister smile. Just mentioning him makes your eyes light up. Luna, do you like him that much? But you were supposed to be mine. He paced quickly back and forth in the room, then lunged at me again, grabbing my hand, pleading desperately, his expression pained. Luna, I acted too rashly, but I just wanted you to care for me more, tolerate me more, value me more. I made a mistake, but I also need a chance to correct it. Seeing him approach suddenly, my heart pounded with alarm. I was about to scold him when Marcus's phone suddenly rang. His features contorted for a moment, then quickly returned to his usual clear-headed, rational self. He answered the phone gracefully, stood up and put on his jacket, and walked out. Before leaving, he turned and smiled at me. Luna, get some rest. I'll come keep you company tomorrow. But he didn't come the next day, nor the day after. I huddled alone in the corner of the room, feeling that time dragged on endlessly, my heart filled with anxiety. Finally, one evening, Marcus pushed open the iron door again. He was still neatly dressed this time, but there was a slight franticness in his mannerisms. I stared at him coldly. He cautiously reached out a finger to touch my face. "You've lost weight." I turned my face away, avoiding his touch. His hand recoiled slightly, then grabbed my chin and forcefully lifted my face. "Does being with me make you so unhappy?" Days of vigilance had exhausted me. "Marcus, why don't we just end things here? Let me go, let me be free." He stared blankly after my words. "Let you go, let you be free. Then who will free me?" I ignored him. After a moment, Marcus said in a low voice, "Where would you go after leaving me?" "To? Just let you go for a little while, and you'll spread your wings and never come back." He chuckled twice. "Should I say you're very charming? To hook up with a Song family member and climb the social ladder so quickly." I looked at him in disbelief. I couldn't believe such hurtful words came from the man who constantly claimed to love me. Marcus had completely lost his mind at this point, like a wolf baring its fangs, not hiding his thirst for blood in the slightest. "If we're gone, would you then obediently stay by my side?" For to reach such a high position at a young age was due to both his family's support and his own terrifying methods. I looked at Marcus with utterly unfamiliar eyes. He seemed like a devil now. His consistent ruthlessness allowed him to get everything he wanted. Over time, he grew arrogant and overbearing, no longer able to accept anyone or anything he desired slipping from his control. Yet I still underestimated the extent of Marcus's madness. He was no longer the man I knew. I desperately pleaded, "Marcus, snap out of it, you shouldn't be like this." He clutched his hair, saying in anguish, "Then what should I be like? Can you tell me what I should be like? Without you, I've lost sense of who I am." He desperately grabbed my hand. "Letting you go was the biggest mistake I've ever made. I've realized my mistake, please come back, okay? Give me a chance to make it up to you, okay?" There was no reasoning with him. I disheartenedly shook his hand away, shaking my head resolutely. "It's impossible, Marcus, give up." He stopped talking, gently touched my face, and told me, "Julian is going against me outside, and you're disobedient in your cage. What will it take to keep you by my side?" He suddenly thought of something, his eyes lit up, and he said excitedly, "Then let's die together." On a table on one side of the room stood a silver candelabra, used as decoration. He broke off its sharp metal part and held it to his wrist, tracing it back and forth, his smile somewhat twisted. The metal instantly pierced his skin, and blood slowly seeped out. I gasped, unconsciously taking 2 steps back. "You're insane. Quite sharp, isn't it?" He looked at the wound on his wrist, weighing the metal in his hand, and slowly walked towards me. I had been huddled in the corner, but with danger approaching, I couldn't just sit there and wait to die. I quickly crouched up, clutching the blanket I'd been using for warmth. I frantically looked around. In my despair, I suddenly noticed the bathroom door was slightly ajar. I made up my mind, once Marcus got a little closer, I would find a way to run to the bath room. Marcus coaxed softly, "Come on, let's die together. I tried it for you, it doesn't hurt. Just for a moment, and we can leave this place, leave everyone who wants to take you away from me." As he was about to reach me, I forcefully threw the blanket in my hand at his face. Taking advantage of the moment his face was covered, I slipped under his arm and rushed into the bathroom with all my might, locking the bathroom door immediately. There was nothing in the bathroom I could move to barricade the door, nor was there a window. I locked myself in the shower stall. Marcus's footsteps sounded outside the bathroom door for a while, then disappeared. I temporarily relaxed. Since there were no windows, there had to be a ventilation shaft. I looked up and indeed saw a circular, palm-sized ventilation shaft opening. I stood on the toilet and forcefully pushed at the panel covering the shaft opening with my hand. The panel was a bit loose, but it wouldn't open. Marcus's voice sounded again from outside, "Luna, you're not trying to use the ventilation shaft, are you?" My foot slipped, and I almost fell. I barely managed to grab the sink and steady myself, but fear still spread through me. Marcus's voice rang out again, this time accompanied by the jingle of a set of keys. "Luna, I just went to get the keys, you know. You'd better not do anything to make me angry. It's over." The crisp click of the door lock opening sounded like a death knell to me. I trembled all over, feeling utterly hopeless. The door lock turned once. I imagined streaks of light seeping out from the door crack. The metallic smell of blood wafted in through the door crack. "Goodbye, Mom and Dad. Your daughter was foolish in judging people and met with disaster. Please forgive your daughter for not being able to fulfill her filial duties by your side in the future." The door lock turned again. It opened. Marcus appeared in my sight, silhouetted against the light. His face was ashen, and the wound on his wrist was still dripping blood. He walked towards me with a twisted smile. "Goodbye, Julian. Thank you for always taking care of me. I never told you, your presence gave me the courage to live. I liked you very much. I love you." Marcus raised the medal in his hand high, about to strike, when chaotic footsteps sounded from outside the iron door. Marcus stopped his hand as if suddenly awakened from a dream. In less than 2 seconds, someone kicked open the door. A large number of police officers and security guards flooded in, instantly subduing Marcus. Julian pushed through the crowd, his hands trembling, rushed over and hugged me tightly. "Luna, Luna." Marcus stared blankly at the blood covering his hands, then at me, trembling and terrified. His lips quivered uncontrollably. "Luna, I didn't mean to hurt you, Luna, I'm sorry." His face completely drained of color. He didn't resist and was taken away by the police. Marcus was taken to the police station. After I finished giving my police report, Julian led me out. As soon as we got into the car, he pulled me into a fierce embrace. After a while, he frantically grabbed my hand again, and his trembling fingers traced my shoulders, my arms. When he touched my elbow, I involuntarily flinched. Julian quickly pulled up my sleeve. My puncture wound was still oozing blood and aching faintly. His hand hovered over my wound, his fingertips trembling. I looked at him. His brows were furrowed, and his eyelashes were beaded with glistening tears. His voice was choked, and there was a hint of lingering fear in his words. "Do you know how scared I was? What if he had done something to you? What if you had been harmed?" That terror, poised to fall, captivated all my attention. Between life and death, I had finally understood my own feelings. Seeing Cry, I was filled with both love and pity, unconsciously leaning forward and kissing his eyes. Beneath my lips, his eyelashes fluttered softly like raven feathers. The corners of his eyes were faintly red, making him even more captivating. All the worries and concerns of the past few days instantly vanished. After the soft kiss, I trailed my lips down his prominent nose, finally resting on his soft lips. After a long moment, I gently pulled back. Julian's arms tightened around my waist. His voice was a little dry. "Luna, do you know what you're doing? My patience has its limits." I wrapped my arms around his neck and nodded gently. Julian's eyes were still red, on the verge of tears. He gritted his teeth, his voice hoarse, sounding incredibly sensual. "Luna, I like you. I like you." He drove away decisively, and when we got home, before I could even step out, he quickly and steadily picked me up and carried me inside the room. When I woke up again, no one was beside the bed. Julian was standing on the balcony, a cigarette glowing intermittently between his fingers. Half his face was in light, half in shadow, his expression unfathomable. I slowly sat up, leaning against the headboard, and softly called his name. "Julian." He seemed startled and turned to look at me, his expression gentle. "Luna, wait, I smell of cigarettes." I wouldn't have it, walking barefoot to him, leaning in and taking a puff from the cigarette in Julian's hand. Julian's voice came from above me. "Luna, will you regret this?" I looked up at him. His expression was tense, as if awaiting my judgment. "Why do you like me?" I touched his face. "From the first moment I saw you, back then. We were in high school." He took my hand and placed it over his heart. "I can't explain why I cared for you so much. My entire life before this, I watched you. Every second you looked at Marcus, I was watching you. I watched you fall in love with him, watched you endure all the heartache by his side. My heart ached as if it were being torn apart, yet I couldn't go to you. It wasn't until you were about to get engaged that I realized waiting would lead nowhere. If I didn't do something, I'd spend my whole life watching you suffer from afar. I'd never felt such an urgent desire to take you under my wing, to pull you into my embrace. So I went to Vivian. Luna, if I told you all of this was my plan, would you hate me?" He cupped my face, pressing his forehead against mine. Pure love washed over me, and I couldn't resist it. I looked up and kissed his lips. I had never felt more truly that he loved me, and that he was afraid of losing me. His love surged towards me like a tide, overwhelming me. And so, I was willing to embrace his way of loving with the same affection. If his secrecy gave him a sense of security, then I was willing to overlook it. I didn't care about any of it anymore.